Let's take a look here at Quick Develop. With some images we can sometimes find that they don't need very much image editing at all. In that case we can turn to the Quick Develop option right here in the library module. We can choose to work on one image, a number of images, or a whole folder of images if we wanted to. Generally speaking, this option may be more common when we shoot JPEG images, because our in-camera software may have already corrected for colour and tone in the moments after it captured the image and saved it to our storage card. It's probably fair to say that this option will be less used with RAW files, because normally we need to do just a little more editing with RAW files than we do with JPEGs, but you'll notice I keep using the word generally because there's always going to be some exceptions. Quick Develop just gives us the basics, but at times it's all we need. Let me pick just one image from this page. The image down at the bottom left may be as good as ever, and I'll double click so we get a larger view of it. We don't need this panel on the right hand side here, so this may be the time when I choose to hide all of those panels apart from the one on the right. We get a much bigger picture to view. Let's look at what we have. We can first apply a preset. We've seen these before. We can go to the Lightroom black and white filter presets, black and white presets, tone presets. There's so many here, you really need to be left to your own devices and have a little play with this from time to time and see exactly what it will create. But here, if I go down further, you can see I've got the option to change the white balance. I'm going to leave it as shot, but we can try one of the other two. Cloudy conditions. It's just warmed it up a little bit, so you can see what we need to do. We need to choose something which takes the image towards a result that we find appealing. We have an auto tone control, but within that auto tone we've got all of the options we're going to be dealing with in much greater detail when we go to the Develop module. So perhaps I'll leave these alone at the moment, otherwise we'll be doubling up. But let's move down to exposure. Here we can increase or decrease exposure. Now we can do the same with clarity and we can do the same with vibrance. This here is a small step and this is a larger step. So what we can do usually that's what I was looking for, when we hover over these buttons, it's telling me that if I want to increase the exposure by 1/3 of a stop, click that button. And you see the image brightens up a little bit. So I can click it again and add another 1/3 of a stop. Or I can hit this option and take it up one stop. Let me take it back to where we started. There's a one stop increase in exposure. We get a little bit of tone coming through the trees, but we lose some of those nice colours, but perhaps we can put them back with a bit of clarity. So what I'm going to do is click to increase clarity here, and we can see the change. I'm going to do it to increase it again, and the same with vibrance. Click, click, click a number of times until you get the effect you're looking for, and I'm adding quite a bit of colour here. I expect there is a limit, but there you can see I've made quite a change. But there, quick and simply, we've been able to apply the Quick Develop option. I'll hit the G key and we'll just return to the grid screen. Remember that if I had a batch of images, if I wanted to place that Quick Develop setting to all of those images, all I would need to do is to select them all. And I could do exactly the same as I've just done. One of the things we need to remember about Lightroom in general is it works differently to the way other image editing programs work. If we work in Photoshop or Photoshop Elements or any of the other image editors, by and large, once we've made a change to an image like we did with this image here, then we usually then go to the top left of the screen, File, Save, and we save it in the format and the way we want to save it. With Lightroom we don't do that. First of all of the changes we've made to this image has been saved as we go. So if we want to, we can just leave the image as it is, knowing that when we come back into this window sometime in the future, the image is going to be just as we left it. But because this is a raw file, and because of the way Lightroom works, because it will do this with a JPEG as well, we can reset that back to exactly where it started, or we could adjust just a little bit of the changes we've already made. Now we're going to be looking at the history when we move over to the develop options. But just for the moment, let's do so. I'm going to hit Shift and Tab to bring back all of those palettes, because what I'm going to suggest we do here with that image selected is just briefly jump to the develop module. We're not going to dwell too much on this, but here you can see the history. There's all the touches of the quick develop that I use, but if I want to go back to where I started, I can just go back to white balance as shot. We need to scroll down to show a few more. There's another one there, but there's the one where we open the image, and there we are, back to square one. Quick develop. Now once again I'm going to use the word generally and say that in our quality photography I'm going to suggest that 999 times out of 1,000 we will be doing the work I've just done there much more carefully and much more effectively in the develop module. But it's horses for courses. I had a situation recently where I had to go outside and take a series of quick images of various aspects of our caravan to be able to fire off to the manufacturers to show a problem we had. And when I dragged the images off my flashcard, that's when I realised that they're a little bit on the dark side and maybe they're a little bit flat. So this is one of those options where we could quickly add a little bit of exposure and maybe a little bit of clarity to increase the contrast and prepare those images to be fired off as email attachments to the company in question.